Hello, my name's Jeni Fraser, and I'm going to talk to you today about the colour blue in a kind of potted history, but hopefully you'll learn something and it'll be entertaining. In the hands of artists, blue has the power to tap into our deepest desires as well as alter our perceptions and even the course of history. And that is no more evident than in the case of the colour blue. Blue, that elusive hue that reveals itself at the corners of our universe, at the farthest point of the horizon. And in the case of James Turrell's light installation, acts both as a passageway and a destination. Here, a raised walkway guides viewers forward and gives them a sense of floating in space, while a cycle of illumination in different shades of blue invites further contemplation. Every language first had a word for black and for white, or for dark and for light. The next word to come into existence for a colour in all languages studied around the world was red. Red, the colour of blood and wine, which in the case of this drinking cup from the 6th century BC Greece by the potter Ezekias is probably highly appropriate. After red, historically, the colour yellow appears, and then later green. Blue, as we know it, simply didn't exist. The Greeks didn't even have a word for it. The chemist Heinz Becher of the University of Zurich explained that humans had no access to the colour blue because blue is not considered an earth colour. You don't find it in the soil. About 4,500 years ago, the Egyptians discovered a semi-precious stone, lapis lazuli, which when ground into a powder, they used to adorn the tombs of the pharaohs because they believed that the colour led the soul to immortality and also opened the heart to love. Legend has it that Cleopatra's famous blue eyeshadow was made from ground lapis, although whether this was the main attraction for Mark Antony is open to speculation. However, because of its rarity in nature, blue becomes a colour of luxury. And when it finds its way into Europe in the 14th century, it's the most sought-after shade in the Western world and worth more than 5 times its weight in gold. In 1303, Giotto was one of the first artists to take advantage of this expensive pigment for the frescoes of the Scrovini Chapel. Now, while the walls detail the life of Christ, the ceiling beckons viewers into a great expanse of deep ultramarine, scattered with gold stars. For Giotto, heaven was blue. And when the colour started to be associated with divinity, the church sought to control it. Laws were passed prohibiting citizens to wear blue, which was reserved for one figure only, the Virgin Mary. The adoption of blue as the official colour of the Virgin coincides with the rise of Mariology and the cult of the Virgin. And this can be all traced back to the Byzantine Empire, so about 500 AD, where the colour blue was the colour of an empress and linked to femininity. So no blue for boys or pink for girls, in fact, quite the opposite. Anyone buying lapis for a religious painting did so for 2 reasons. The first was as an expression of devotion to and glorification of the Virgin, but the second was as a reflection of his standing in the church and in society, which for Richard II served him well, as we can see here in the Wilton diptych. This new vogue for blue gains an important boost from a remarkable promotional agent whose role was comparable to that of the Virgin in images, and that was the King of France. Now, while the fleur-de-lis symbolic origins may stem from baptismal lilies used at the coronation of Clovis I, the blue of the background honours the Virgin Mary as protector of France and of its historical family of rulers. Cloaked in royal blue, the kings of France signalled that their authority came directly from God. It was in the 18th century when blue's victory over all other colours was sealed through the appearance of a new colour symbolism that enthroned blue as the worthiest of colours and assured it associations with things like liberty and dreams and progress and enlightenment. And given those attributes, it's no accident at all that the artist of this portrait of Denis Diderot, the great Enlightenment philosopher, chose to clothe his subject in blue. Alongside the birth of Romanticism, we find blue employed in the services of national, military and political causes. This blue was born in France, where it has preserved those triple dimensions for over 2 centuries. In the tricolour, blue is perceived as the national flag's most important colour because it's closest to the pole. Moreover, when there's no wind, blue is the only visible colour. White and red are certainly national colours as well, but the blue of the flag, born during the Revolution, seems more representative of the French nation. Blue is the colour of consensus, while white and red today evoke opinions and ideologies that are more radical and polarising. As the century wore on and the focus of art shifted to the secular, artists continued to be enchanted by the emotional power of the colour blue. You only have to look at the blues that await these lovers in Edvard Munch's Kiss by a Window. The couple almost welded together and shrouded in indigo, while brighter blues guide your eye to the outside. Munch's use of blue shades are a reflection of his own emotional journey and his feelings about anxiety and love and infidelity and separation. Yet there's much more to blue than woeful connotations or gloomy interpretations. For some, blue held the key to spirituality. Franz Marc, who along with Wassily Kandinsky founded the Blue Rider Group in the 20th century, was a great connoisseur of colour and believed wholeheartedly in its spiritual properties. He said, "The deeper the blue becomes, the more strongly it calls man towards the infinite, awakening a desire for the pure and finally for the supernatural." The French artist Yves Klein was obsessed with flight and immateriality and once claimed to have signed the sky as his own work of art. He celebrated blue by creating a very unique shade that he called International Klein Blue. He rejected the idea of representation to arrive at what he considered ultimate creative freedom, to be immersed in a void of pure colour. "The world is blue," Klein famously proclaimed. "Blue has no dimensions. It is beyond dimension." So we've touched on how blue is emblematic of immortality and of the Queen of Heaven, symbolic of nobility and of political consensus, and evocative of spirituality, each of which Chagall's Peace Window at the UN seems to encapsulate. Despite gender, social origins, profession, or cultural baggage, blue dominates all. Blue is the West's favourite colour, far surpassing all others. And perhaps this is why blue holds such an enduring appeal for artists today. It is a colour that's forever beyond reach, just as the mountains cease to be blue as you meet them. The poet Robert Hass once said, "Blue is the colour of longing for a distance that can never be closed, the tantalising promise of worlds beyond our own." And there is a lovely turning point in all this when, in 1968, photos from the Apollo 8 mission revealed Earth, seen from space, as blue. All through the centuries, we've thought of blue as the colour of escape from earthly things. But when we finally breach those horizons, we find that blue is the colour of our own planet.